A very good morning, everyone. Myself, Pooja Charosia. I'm working as an assistant professor in IIMT College Pharmacy in Greater Noida. Now, today I'm discuss on my topic like Consumer Protection Act. Next slide is introduction of law. Law means rule made by the authority and a higher authority of organization for the proper regulation of community or society or for correct conduct in life. Law is a different from the different act. It is an act of parliament like statute commonly called a act enacted as primary legislation by a national or subnational Parliament. It set out the main objective, which is legislation intended to achieve. Example like Contract Act and Consumer Act, etc. Next is what is consumer. Consumer refers of any individual or household that use goods and service generated within the economy. Consumer is defined as someone who acquired goods or service for direct use or ownership rather than for resell or use the product and manufacturing. For example, when your father buy apple for you and you consume them, your father as well as yourself are treated as a consumer. The said thing applying to hiring a taxi to go to your schools. Next is what is consumer law? Consumer law regulate private law relationship between individual customer and the business that sell those goods or service. IT deals with credit card repairs and debit repairs, product safety, service and sales contract. Will contractor regulation, pricing, utility, turn off, consolation, person loan that may lead the back repetition and much more. Concept of consumer protection. The consumer protection means safeguarding the interest and right of consumer. In other words, it refers to the measure adopted for the protection of consumer from and unethical malpractice by the business and to provide them speedy redressal of their grievance. Next is Consumer Protection Act. The Consumer Protection Act 1986 was enacted for better protection of the interest of consumer. The provision of the Act come into force with effect of 15/4/87. 1987. Consumer Protection Act imposed strict liability on the manufacturer in case supply of defective goods by him and a service provider in case the deficiency of regarding of its service. History of Consumer Protection Act. The act was passed in Lok Sabha on 9 December 1986 and it's come into force from 1 July 1987. Rajya Sabha passed on 10 December 1986 and assented by the President of India on 24 December 1986 and the published in the Gazette of India on 26 December 1986. Next is feature of Consumer Protection Act. It's applied to all good service and unfair trade practice unless specifically exempted by the central government. It's covered all sector, whether private and public and cooperative. The provide for establishment of Consumer Protection Council at the central, state, and district level, like to promote and protect the right of consumer and the three judicial machinery or to deal with consumer grievance and dispute. Next is what is a object to our act. To provide a venue for grievance and redress and outlines to need of consumer protection to ensure the better quality of living by improving the quality of consumer product and service. And third is to protect the consumer from abusing and then outline machinery of settlement and consumer grievance and then describe the main provision of Consumer Act in 1986 and 99. Next is understanding the advantage and change of the new Consumer Protection Act is 1990, 2019, which replace the old Protection Act. Next is importance of Consumer Protection Act. Importance from consumer point of view. First is unorganized customer या consumer. In developing country like India, consumer are not organized. There are very few consumer organization which are working to protect the interest of consumer. Consumer protection provide powers and right to these organization as these organization can file a case behalf of consumer. Next is consumer ignorance. It is spread awareness so the consumer can be about the various redressal agencies where where they can approach to protect these interests. Why, next is widespread exploitation of consumer. These are lots of exploitation of consumer as a businessman use various unfair trade practice to cheat and exploit consumer. Consumer protection provides a safeguard and to the consumer from such as exploitation. Next is importance from businessman point of view. Businessmen use safety resource. First, businessmen use the resource of safety. They earn profit by supplying goods or service to the member of society. They must be these resource from the benefits of consumer. Next is social responsibility. A businessman has social obligation toward customer. It is a responsibility of a businessman to provide quality goods at responsible, reasonable price and consumer protection guidance businessmen to provide social responsibility. Third is government intervenes of business. It's if the businessman want to avoiding interventions of governments, they should not involve the unfair trade practice. Businessmen should voluntarily involve in the activity which protect the interest of consumer. Consumer is a purpose of business. The basic purpose of the business is the create or the more customer are retained, then the business can create more customer only by satisfying the customer and consumer and protecting the interest of consumer. Next is what is the scope of Consumer Protection Act. First is requirement of performance, composition, content, designing, construction, finish, packaging of a consumer protection. Next is requirement as a kind, glass grade, and dimension, weight, and material. Third is requirement as to the method of sampling, testing, and code. Users check the quality of the product. Last is required as a precaution to store transportation and packaging. Why need to Consumer Protection Act? The necessity of adopting consumer measurement to protect the interest of consumer arising mainly due to the helpless position of the consumer. First, like social responsibility. It it the moral responsibility of the business to serve the interest of consumer and keeping the line with the principle. It is the duty of manufacturer, yeah, producer and trader to provide right quality and right quantity of the goods at fair pricing to the consumer. Next is increasing awareness. The consumer are become more mature and conscious of the right against the mail practice by the business. There are many consumer organization and association who are making effort to build consumer awareness. Third is consumer satisfaction. Father of the nation Mahatma Gandhi has once given a call to manufacturer and traders to treat your consumer as a god. Consumer satisfaction is a key to success of business. Hence, the businessman should take every step serve the interest of the consumer by providing them quality goods and service at the reasonable price. Next slide is right of consumer. Right of consumer in involving lots of steps like right to safety, right to information, right to choice, right to health, and right to chic redressal, and right to consumer education, and right to basic need, and last is right to healthy environment. Next is consumer responsibility. Consumer must exercise his right. The consumer must select the product according to his preference. He must file a complaint if the he is not satisfied with the quality and quantity of the product. Caution consumer. The consumer should not be blindly believe on the word of seller and trader. He must insist to getting full information on the quality, quantity, utility, and pricing related to our product. Consumer must be quality conscious. According his the consumer himself stop compromising the quality and quantity of the product while purchasing a goods or service. Consumer must be look for quality marks such as FCI mark, egg marks, and ISO mark and wool mark etc. Next is business association. In India, various business associations such as Redison of India Chamber of Commerce and Industry and Confederation of Indian Industry has formed a set of code of conduct which lay down guidelines of dealing with customer. Next is consumer awareness. Consumer must be well aware about his right, responsibility, and relief available his under Consumer Protection Act. Consumer organization. He helped the important role in educating customers regarding his right and duty. Next is how to filing a complaints. Some important are defined as Consumer Protection Act. Who is consumer? Consumer one who buy goods and service for some values. When or under that circumstances, the complaint can be filed, like fail by trader and manufacturer if goods are defected. Within the period, the complaints can be filed. The complaints must be filed within a 3 month of purchase, and if some testing of goods is required, then within a 5 month. Where the complaints can be filed: district forum, state forum, and national forum. The district forum, the value of goods and compensation claim does not exceed like 20 lakh. Next is state commission. The value of goods or compensation is more than 20 lakh but does not exceed 1 crore. Last is national commission. It makes up all cases exceeding the value of 1 crore. What is not a Who is not a consumer? The person who obtained goods for resale. The person who used the goods without the approval of the buyers. The person who obtained goods here or available of any service without consideration. Next is some relief or remedy to consumer. First is removal of defect from the goods. Second is replacement of goods, fund of pricing paid, and compensation of lost or injuries suffered. And next is removal of deficiency in service. And last is stopping the sales and hazardous goods. Next is three forum consumer grievance machinery under the Consumer Protection Act 1986, and they are judicial. First is district forum, second is state, and third is national forum. District forum is consist of a president and two others members. The president can be retired or working judge of district court. They are appointed by the state government. In 1986, it had judicial of intent complaints there where the value of good or service does not exceed like 5 lakh, but now the limit is raised up to 20 lakh. The agency sent the goods for testing in lab, then he aggravates party is not satisfied by the judgment of district forum, then they can be applied in the state commission within a 30 days by the deposit 25,000 or 50% of penalty without whichever is less. Next is state forum. It consists of a president and two another member. The president must be a retired or a working judge of high courts. They also are appointed by state government, and in 1986 it had a judicial of intent complaint when the value of goods or service exceed like 5 lakh but not the limit of price up to 1 crore. The state commissioner sent the goods for the testing. If required the testing, then he is upset party is not satisfied with the judgment, then they can appeal to national commission within 30 days by deposition 3500 and 50% of penalty amount whichever is less. Next is national forum. It consists of a president and four members, one of who shall be woman. They are appointed by central government. In 1986, it had judicial to intend complaints where the value of goods or service exceed like 20 lakh but not exceed 1 crore. The National Commission sent the goods if required for the testing. If party is not satisfying then with the judgment, then they can be file a complaint in Supreme Court within 30 days. Next is role of consumer organization. In the Indian, there are about 500 consumer organizations working in the field of consumer protection. Most popular like Consumer Guidance Society of India in Mumbai and Citizen Action Group in Mumbai. Next is Consumer Education and Research Center in Hyderabad. Next is Common Causes Center in Delhi and Consumer Unity and Trust Society in Delhi. Next is these associations are performing following function: bringing out brochure, journal, etc., spreading consumer awareness, and collecting data of different products and testing them, filing suit or complaints on the behalf of consumer and customer, and then educating the customer and consumer to help themselves, educating humans regarding circumstances, and last is motivating people to ask for quality marks such as SCI mark and EG marks, etc. Thank you.